Video. You're live. Do you see it, Paul?
Not yet.
Okay, everyone, we're just getting it up. Try to go back to the page and go to
we're live now.
Okay, we're live. Thanks, everyone, and welcome to episode number 5 on Inside the Junior Reign. I'll keep this up. We don't have our lovely assistant today behind the camera, so we got to make sure that everything is being fed properly here. So I'm just going to have it up in case so we can see any of the questions and comments people type in, and also make sure the feed's working. My name is Ben Frank. I'm the Junior Reign Club President. I have here with me, as always, Paul Esdale, our Chief of Hockey Operations. And again, while you're watching, if you could please give us a thumbs up, a like, let us know you're watching, say hello to us. We'll go into the comments. We'll acknowledge you right on the show. But again, whether you're watching live or on the replay, because a lot of our viewers will watch on the replay, because Monday at 2 p.m. people are working in school and things. So let us know your comments or your questions. Let us know you're watching, and we'll be sure to answer them either on one of our shows or in the comment section. We really appreciate it. If you like what you hear, you think you might have some other people that like what we're talking about, we really appreciate you sharing the episodes as well, because this is what we love to do. We love to talk about the things that we do every day. So today we're going to be talking about practice. Like part 2, last week we did have some technical difficulties, but we had a great conversation around practice, the importance of practice. And it can often be lost when talking about hockey, because obviously there's an excitement around the games and about winning and losing games and playing in the games. But the core of what we do as Youth Hockey Club really comes down to the practices, working with the kids, seeing the growth, seeing the development. And we also talked about it's 3 days a week compared to 1 on the games. It's our most chance for interaction with the kids and the families, and it's our biggest place where we can make a difference. So we talked about, I asked Paul a lot of questions. Paul he's our Chief of Hockey Operations. He's the one on the ground with the kids every single day, designing the practices, working with our coaches, building the curriculum for our program. And I asked Paul a lot of questions about some of the things that go into designing great practices and the importance of practice. And I just touched on that, and where the kids actually get better. And it's actually the emphasis of the majority of the season for all of the kids. So it needs to be our biggest emphasis, and it's the place where we can make the biggest difference. We talked about, Paul talked to us about the importance of practice being fun, so kids wanting to come to the rink, coming to practice. We talked about the practices being age appropriate, so the differences of practices for an 8-year-old and a 14-year-old, or even between a 10-year-old and a 12-year-old. We talked about practices being relatable, not just doing things because that's the way they've been done, but doing things because it's going to help them become better hockey players. And we talked about the coach planning and connection with the players, and how to actually coach to connect with the kids during practice, and have them active and getting better while the coach is working with them, not being authoritarian, just kind of controlling things and making it adult-centered practice, making it really an athlete-player-centered practice. So let's start there,
Sure. Paul.
And what I'd like to do today is dig into some more specifics, so you can really help our viewers get an idea of, not just big picture stuff, really some of the specifics of how this is done and what the most important things are to focus on, and some of those items. So first, before diving into some questions, anything you wanted to add to recap there?
Yeah, I think we talked on it last week about the science behind actual learning, and I think knowing the windows of trainability, USA Hockey's done a great job with their skill progression book that we based our curriculum off of, and understanding that and knowing that is really critical for success and player development for kids to reach their genetic potential, as we talk about. So if, like I said, if we're not doing the right things at the certain age groups, then they're going to be missing out in those windows, and it's almost impossible to get those back. So if we're training 8-year-olds like 18-year-olds and working on 2-on-2 forecheck systems and full ice forechecking and defensive zone systems, they're going to miss out on all the skill development and those windows of trainability, and that's critical, knowing those, and that's why we based our curriculum off the American Development Model and the Skill Progression Book.
And where can they get one of those? So that's the thing that amazes me, is how few people, even hockey coaches, and Nick's probably going to grab one right now, even know about some windows of trainability. So these books are free, right? Yeah. We have them. And ask if you're a junior Reign parent, or even someone else, another hockey parent, in-house or another club. Ask one of our staff for one of these books. USA Hockey sends them to us for free. We hand them out to the parents. It goes through each age group, the science of each age group, the windows of trainability that age group is open to learning and developing at that particular age group, and that's what we want to build our practices and our training based on to get the maximum amount of results. The amount of people that don't even realize that these resources are here. I mean, it's not a secret, right? It's all out there, and it's also, you can download it on the USA Hockey website and admkids.com. Why don't you maybe give some specific examples, Paul, of some of those things?
Sure, yeah. So they go over the categories are the focus points. They talk about the station-based practices, age-appropriate training, the actual practice focus, percentage-wise broken down. Then they talk obviously about the windows of trainability, and then player knowledge, which is an interesting one and a good one. And it's all age-specific. So they go through from 8 and under all the way to 18 under. Every age group in this 65-page book. And it's short, compact, but it's about 6-7 pages per age group, and it covers everything, and it's neat. And it talks about diet and training, all the stuff as they get older, the mental side of things, even at the older ages, and it really hones in on hitting those right things. And I think we start with the 8 and unders. They talk about the certain windows that are important. Right, that's the speed 1 window. And the suppleness, what we call suppleness. So suppleness is flexibility, that athletic ability, understanding your physical body at that age, right? So that's why a lot of the off-ice is jumping and tag and different body movements, getting familiar with that. And then with the speed 1 is those short change of direction, burst speed. So it's not long, full ice skating, working on stamina at 8 years old. It's change direction, it's quickness, it's those things. So those are things that are really important, and that's why you have to base, and like we talked about last time about changing the size of the rink depending on the age group, and actually making sure we're hitting these windows in these drills. And
I think a lot of people maybe don't realize the thought that needs to go into planning a practice. Like for us to we talked about also last week, at this age we have 2 or 3 practices a week, on hours a week on the ice. We do a couple hours of off-ice training as well, but that's all we get with the kids. And when we know we want these kids to be able to achieve their goals in hockey, whatever that may be. Maybe they dream of the NHL, they dream of college, junior hockey, those things. And again, we don't know at the young ages who's going to be the ones that decide to put the effort and work in to take that dream and to really go for it. What we want to be is we don't want to be the reason why a kid doesn't have the chance to pursue that dream because they weren't doing the right things in developing. And we know that hockey is a specialty sport. They can't go home and practice for hours and hours. They could do certain things at home, but we only get them on the ice for a few hours a week. It's not cheap to come out and play on the ice and get that training. So we want to maximize and get everything we can out of it. So to not understand the science and the windows of training of what a player needs most at that moment, knowing that they're never going to be an 8-year-old again, they're never going to be a 10-year-old again. So we're going to miss that window if we don't maximize every last drop out of it to get them the best they can, so we can set them up to pursue and achieve any dream that they want. To not know that science, it's irresponsible on a coach's part or on our programming part to be doing things that aren't even relatable at that age group.
Yeah, and that's actually why the American Development Model was launched. It was launched as and is an elite training program, and it started from the top up, which we've talked about and talked with Ken about, is that they were finding at the highest levels they were getting very average players that didn't really understand the game. So they might have had certain skill sets, but then they were missing the hockey sense. So there was a disconnect, right? So then they had to look back at, well, what's happening at the grassroots? Are they learning the right skill sets at the right time? And they realized that we weren't doing that. Yeah. We're training systems, win at all costs at 9, 10 years old, and we're not taking advantage of the window of trainabilities. And we know from 9 to 12 years old is the golden age of skill development. So that's all skill acquisition time. So shooting, stick handling, passing, all those things, skating. If we're not getting the most out of each practice and attaining those skills, and we're working on full team breakouts and systems, we're going to be missing out on that time to acquire those skills. And then down the road, as they get older, they're not going to be able to execute those systems you want to do, and it's not going to lead to any success at all. So that's what's happening, and that's the reason why the American Development Model was formed.
And I think that needs to be continually reiterated, because a lot of people I think don't realize with the American Development Model, they were realizing this at the National Team Development Program, the highest levels of youth hockey going into junior and college hockey, national team hockey that there is, and they were realizing they were running out of time with players. So they have the best players in the country here at the national trainers there, but the USA Hockey's goal is not just to be have the best American players, it's to have the best players in the world. And their players were behind in certain skills and things that they couldn't catch them up on. So they have them there. The national team development, they live there. They have them on the ice every day, but they didn't have enough time to go back and reteach some of the things and the systems that those windows were now gone. And you could still get better a little bit, but they still also need to get better at the things that are important at that age group and that level. So they didn't have enough time to go back and fix those things that they missed out as youth. And so they know they needed to fix the system from the bottom because the players, when they were getting to the top, they were missing things. And one of the biggest reason, maybe two things: knowledge, maybe not people not knowing how different kids are from the adults and what they need at those training levels, but also, you alluded to it, focusing on, we got to win this weekend, so we need to work on our power play, or we need to work on our breakout, or we need to work on the positions or whatever, the line combinations or whatever. And so that you're focused on that weekend, but you're missing now the long-term growth of that player.
Right, and you can have both, but you got to do it the right way. And I think that's what we've learned over the last couple of years of developing the curriculum, that, hey, there's nothing wrong with working on breakouts. Right. But how do you work on those breakouts, and with what age group, you know what I mean, and how do you utilize the ice? How do you utilize the other players that aren't involved? So that's the learning process of, and that's why the curriculum is so important, because I've seen, a lot of people run at 12 and under work on breakouts, which is fine, but there's 5 guys going and then there's 15 guys standing on the side. Yeah. And that's not maximizing your ice, right? So they're not getting the right repetition. So you have to balance it out, you have to understand the work to rest ratios, and that's why we talked about the activity tracker, how important activity puck touches is in those certain drills. And that's when we start to talk about when we look at specific drills, right? What are we looking to get out of a drill, right? And we talk about the kind of the 4 or 5 keys to a complete player, and this is what we talked about when we're recruiting players at the highest levels is, can they skate? Number one, skating is critical. Watch the NHL, watch the highest levels of hockey. The speed of the game is phenomenal, right? Can they think the game? So that's hockey sense. Do they understand the game, right? The next one is how do they compete? How hard do they compete? How do they battle? And then puck skills, right? So that's skating, shooting, passing, all those things. Those are in the golden age of skill development. And then that 5th one, there's some on-ice part of it, and there's a lot of off-ice part of it is that life skills, the mental kind of toughness kind of stuff that we do some classroom work with to work on that. So when we're looking at drills and creating drills for the curriculum for now and for the future, how many of those drills can we get multiple of those skill sets and those keys in there? If it's just one, maybe that's okay, but can we get 3 or 4 in there, and how does that look? And that makes it a more whole drill and develops the kid faster that way. So those are some things we talk about and think about.
And I want to get you to give an example, a couple of things like that, in a specific example of how you do this. So there's a key point here that the example is going to address, I think, is this is where some things can get lost sometimes. Practice needs to be relatable to a game, meaning that the skills learned in practice need to be game applicable, means that they can be used in the game. But that doesn't mean practice should look like a game. Yeah. Practice is actually going to look very different from a game, and here's why. We know there's not enough development going on in a game. There's 15 players on a team, maybe there's less than some of the younger age groups, there's only 5 on the ice at a time, there's 1 puck, the whole sheet of ice. The statistics on game repetitions and puck touches are out there now very clearly. You maybe get a minute of puck on your stick. The top players, 1 minute to 2 minutes of the puck on your stick. Maximum, you're going to skate half of the time, and a lot of times you're not even going to be skating. No, sorry, a third of the time, most of the time. So you might get 20 minutes of skating in a game, if that, and not all focus areas. So we know that, because if we just wanted practice to be applicable to a game, why not just play games all the time? Right. Well, that's the reason, right? Games don't give you, so practices, we want to find a creative way to squeeze out as much as we possibly can out of practice. Right. So how do we do that? We take the game and we make it all these smaller parts of increased repetitions, and we speed it up, and so things are happening more and more faster that we're going to relate to that game. And that's why, though, if practice is done really well, it actually might look completely not like a game. Yeah. Like some of the drills we're going to talk about in a minute here, which maybe sometimes is confusing for people, because a way to practice a breakout for the average person to just look at it and say they're working on the breakout may just look like a game where you just put 5 guys, 5 players go back, break the puck out just like they would in a game. Whereas a way to really work on the breakout in a way that's going to maximize the development and practice for all the kids out there may look very different, right? And that's where practice, being creative, finding those ways to do it becomes the skill.
Yeah, no, and that's totally right. And I think I want to do some obvious examples first. I think it's to start with 8 and under is the easiest. Yeah. And we can build our way up throughout the season. But for example, if we're working on skating, as we know, skating is very important, especially at the 8 and under level and all as they grow, right? So if we compare 2 drills, we could do, which we've seen a lot in the older school practices or even clinics or hockey schools, where they make 5 lines on the goal line and then the kids skate all the way down and all the way back, or they stop on the red line and they do different skating skills the whole way back
Turns
and forth.
or stops or whatever.
Turns back and forth. Okay, so they're working on skating, right? They're working on long stride skating, which is, the science proves that it's not right window at the 8 and under level. As they get older in the 13, 14 age group, that's when they start to work on the stamina and the long stride. So that's going against the science. But also they're not, if you look at that drill, right, it's one aspect. And, let's ask those questions again. Is it fun, right? Does it relate, right? You know what I mean? Is it age appropriate? Yeah. So we're missing out on those things, right? So for one, I know it's not fun. 7, 8-year-olds standing in line and then just skating the length of the ice. Very little coach interaction, probably. Even if there is coach interaction, what are they saying to the kid? Longer stride or whatever it is. And, at that age, how much are they retaining of that, right? The technical aspect of that right then. Compared to, for example, a skating drill called freeze tag, right? So it's just like tag off the ice in the playground, but think about the freeze tag. So one guy's it, or the coach is it, and there's 7 or 8 guys in a smaller area, so they're working on skating forwards, backwards, eluding someone to tag them, so they're working on short bursts, change the direction.
Which is
speed one, right? They're working on the suppleness, right? Because they got to move their body, contort their body, and avoid the tags. So they're having fun, right? And it follows the science behind it, and it's relatable because it is skating, and it is someone's on you. So you're skating, you're thinking, you're competing. Yeah. So now we got 3 out of the 4 in one drill.
Potentially life skills if you're dealing with winning and losing and frustration, and the kid bumped into you and you're mad now and you got to respond and all these things, right? Or you can't catch the guy.
And the beauty of something just simple as freeze tag is that you can add progressions and you can manipulate so different people are it, right? Or now you have to pivot so one side's forwards, one side's backwards. There's all these progressions.
Skate backwards the whole time.
All these progressions you can do. You can work on
teamwork.
Turns
around the player to free them up.
You can work on teamwork, linked arms, all these things that are more than just skating the length of the ice. So if you think about it that way and break it down, like if you think about that example, for me, it really clarifies why certain things like that are way more appropriate. And you get the most out of that station and that practice.
And I think a lot of people probably have no idea maybe how deep this goes, right? Like they and I've been there. So when I first started coaching things, I did the line skating. I've done this stuff.
Yeah, me too.
I've done this stuff as a coach and as a player.
Yeah.
In the line skating as a coach, you can be very organized. It can look very planned out, and you're working very specific of what you're working on. And to a parent's perspective or an outside perspective, it can look like the coach knows what they're doing, and maybe the coach is demonstrating some of the skating drills, and they can do it very well because I played college hockey, or we have guys who play pro hockey, and they're demonstrating, they look good, so they show up to the player. That's fine, they're working on skating. But especially like you said, the younger levels, USA Hockey talks about it a lot, right? What is if we're talking about kids getting a passion for hockey so that they can love hockey and they become the best that they can be, because they got to be their journey, they got to fall in love with it. What's the best part of Disneyland?
Yeah.
Right? The best part of Disneyland is the rides. What's the worst part? The lines, right? And so from a 7 or 8-year-old or 9 or 10-year-old's perspective, standing in line, when you're coming to do something that's supposed to be fun for them, standing in line and then having to do something straight up and down that they just have to follow it and do it for who knows long, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, hopefully not 30 minutes, 40 minutes. It's not fun.
It's not fun. And what decisions are they making, right? And maybe at the older ages, there's maybe some room to add in some sort of what we talk as habit practice, and you're working on a specific skating skill in a certain way or in a station or something like that. But at the 8 and under level, they're not making any decisions and they're not having fun.
The other big things you mentioned there, though, was the decision making and the compete level, right? So people, they may think like, playing freeze tag is not just because, let's just let them have fun, but we're not getting anything. It's actually this is one example of a game or a drill that people may look at from the outside and think that it's just maybe fun and games or screwing around, but it's actually a very deep coaching, very deep planning, very important emphasis on, because number one, you said it's fun. So what happens when something's fun? You try harder, right? Versus, are you going to give your all out skating up and down the line 20 minutes into it?
Well,
you're not that engaged, right?
No.
But you're trying to beat your buddy in freeze tag.
Sure.
They're going harder. So you know what? They're falling more. They're taking more risks because they're trying to get away. They're actually going on their edge, harder than they might have in a skating drill, out of their comfort zone because they're trying to win the game. And they're falling. So it looks ugly a lot of times, and the kids are bumping into each other. They're making decisions. It's theirs now. It's not someone else following some script. They have to, try to get away, and they can try different things, pivot or turn backwards to these things to try to make that happen, and it becomes their thing. And so they're making decisions, and they're competing hard, and they're pushing themselves out of their comfort zone, and they don't know it because they're having fun.
Yeah, and that's the case, right? And we like freeze tag so much, we've added into kind of our transition where when we're ready to move on to a station, from one stage to the next, we'll blow a whistle, and every third or second week we'll have a freeze tag game or puck pirate game. What we can talk about next is that they don't do a minute or two of freeze tag, and it's all out, hard as they can go. Chaotic it may look, right, and it is, but that's the purpose of hockey, right? Hockey, and there's a lot of science behind this, and watching the game, there's really no two plays that are exactly alike. There's obviously similar patterns of recognition, and similar plays happen all the time, but nothing's ever the same. It's not a static sport. It's a game of transition. Great offense, defense to offense, and that's why drills that replicate chaos and stuff is actually even better, because then when they get to the game, it's actually almost slower, right? And it's less going on, and that's why, and it just ties in all those keys that helps develop it to be a real bang for your buck kind of thing.
Yeah, we're shrinking the space. We're increasing the pace, we're increasing the challenges and obstacles, and we're making it fun and we're competing so that can translate to a game. That's what it looks like the game is, that can translate to the game and be even more challenging in certain periods in a game. Right, so let's go to Puck Pirates next, but then I want to go, because that's another drill that we can use. We can use it even, I use it at the high school levels and things like that, but it's another great one for the youth levels to get the repetitions and the touches. And then let's go to one a little bit of an older, maybe some smaller game things that look a little bit different as well, so we can relate in some of the older age groups as well.
Sure. So Puck Pirates is the one that's it's been around for a while in different ways and maybe different titles, and even at the highest levels, they do some sort of version of a puck protection game or battle royal in the circle or something. This is not from 6-year-old hockey. This is from actually elite hockey, and then bringing it down, renaming it, repackaging it so it's age appropriate. Right. And I don't know if everyone knows the history of the Puck Pirate, that game, but that's where it came from, years and years ago from a university hockey. So
explain the drill.
Yeah, sure. Puck Pirates is very simple. If we're in a smaller area station, whether it's a quarter of the ice or maybe a third of the ice, everyone has a puck, and then the coach he'll designate one or two guys to be the pirate. So everyone on the whistles, all the players will skate around, stick handling, protecting the puck, and coach designates a couple guys to be the pirates. And all the pirates are trying to do, steal the puck and put it in the net or score on the goalie. And then if you lose your puck and lose your puck and it goes in the goal, now you join the pirates and you help them. And the goal of the game for the guys with the pucks is to be the last guy with his puck. So it could end up, say you have 9 guys in a station, it could end up being 8 against 1, right? When you have the last guy and you're kind of the winner. So it teaches a lot of things. First of all, you get right away, you get a ton of puck touches,
Everyone's
right?
got a puck on
Activity, skating, puck handling, heads up, hockey sense. All these things are developing right away. So you're hitting tons of those. You're skating, thinking, competing, puck skills. That's in all 4 keys, right? So that's a real great one. And the guys that are the pirates, they're pursuing, they're working on stick on puck, they're angling, they're battling, puck protection, the other guys. And then when there's more pirates, they start working together. And then there's more pirates than there's guys with pucks. So it starts to be a team game as well. Yeah. And there's versions and progressions where you can do, you can add partners where you do passing, forehands, passes, backhand passes as they get higher levels. So it's a simple thing, but it's like just like freeze tag. There's more depth and width to it than we haven't really talked about and that we even know about.
And there's some of the things that I love about it are some of the habits that people, again, we don't maybe even realize. We're playing Puck Pirates. It's not just a warm-up fun drill. Yeah. So it's very important.
It's fun.
It's fun, and it's a great warm because it gets everyone in puck quick. It's get everyone moving. But you got to have your heads up because everyone could go everywhere. You got to make decisions and things like that, so you don't bump into someone and lose your puck. If the Pirates knocks the puck away from someone, it's not just enough to knock the puck away.
Yeah.
You have to collect the puck.
Yeah.
You have to beat that guy and score. You have to
Yeah.
finish and maybe
Yeah.
beat a goalie to score. That guy who gets his puck stolen is not just out.
Yeah.
They can go get the puck back, chase the guy from behind, lift his stick, steal the puck back, and still stay in the game. And then even when the puck does get scored, now they go instantly from an offensive role to a defensive role. Now they're pursuing the puck carriers, and they're maybe working with the other guys to, this guy's going to force him into an area, and he's going to take the body, I'm going to take the puck, and then we have to score together to beat that guy. So it's constant transition, offense, defense, working to get the puck back, not quitting until you get it back. The game sets up all the right habits.
Right, and those two are great examples for the younger ages, and even the older ages, they can do versions of those and progressions of those, right? And within those two drills, if you run them for the first 5 or 10 or 12, 14 minutes, you can get more development in those two drills than you can in one game.
Yeah.
And within 10 minutes, which is if you take a step back and think about that, you can track it, you can do the research on it, you'll see that there's way more skating, there's way more puck touches, there's way more battles, there's way more decisions,
Yeah.
there's all these things that are happening. Definitely, on a full ice game when you're playing 5-on-5, and then obviously when you're not on the ice and you're sitting on the bench you're waiting for your shift, you're not getting better, right? So those things are really critical, and you can see how if you continue to do drills that have those components and they're age appropriate, they can really add up and see that the activity and the puck touches can really speed up the development.
So compare that with maybe, let's say, a coach, and I've been one of them in the past,
Sure.
who doesn't have an understanding of the windows of trainability. So you have a kid in a program who's doing that, what we just talked about. And then you have a coach, let's say me back in the day, that wants to work on our conditioning for our 8 and under team, our 10 and under team, because we seem like we're getting tired in the games. And so we're going to skate up and down the ice, long skating. Me not knowing that actually those kids don't have the energy capacities to build stamina.
Yep.
And that actually speed, short distance speed 1, short distance speed and acceleration are what they can be developing right now. But I don't know that because I'm just doing maybe what my college coach did. And those kids are I'm either doing damage because I could be maybe, if I'm pushing them too hard, I could be hurting them. Or number 2 is I'm working on something that cannot be improved no matter how much I try to force them to do it. And they're missing out on what can be developed. So the difference of those two players in those two situations over time is just dramatic.
And that's the thing, you hit on all those 3 key points, right? The big one is they're going to be missing out on such valuable time on the ice. Once again, right, we only get X amount of hours per week with the kids on the ice, and kids can find other ice time and stuff, drop-ins and stuff like that, but there's still a limit. It's a limited resource, right? And you cannot recreate what's happening on the ice, right? You can do some stuff at home, specific puck handling, stick handling, stuff like that. But what's happening on the ice is very hard to recreate, so that hockey sense and those actual puck skills on the ice you can't create them anywhere else. So that's why it's really critical that once you get on the ice, there's that intentional plan, and it's making sure it's following the windows of training ability for their age group. Because, like I said, if we don't do those, they're gonna miss out, and you may not see it in the first 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 months. But over time, multiply that out, the proper development, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years, you're going to see a different hockey player. And I think that's, at the end of the day, at the highest levels, that's what hockey was seeing at the highest levels, was there was a real deficiency in the players.
And that's why all of a sudden that kid that was 7, that wasn't a strong player, that was on the B team, and wasn't even the top player on the B team, and no one gave any attention, all of a sudden at 15, what happened to this kid? Well, it's not something they did yesterday or last week or last month or last year. It's that over time, doing the right things, putting the work in. Kids out there, we talk about if you have big goals and dreams, don't miss practice. The kids that go to 2 practices a week compared to the kids that go to 3 practices a week, every year, these repetitions and things, they add up. And
a great example of and some of the things we're going to get to next to the smaller games is Austin Matthews. He's one of the top young American players coming out of Phoenix, originally playing for the Toronto Maple Leafs. And what he did as a young guy, worked on his skating, but he was at the rink all the time, and he was always playing 3-on-3 small area games. So tiny areas where he got to touch the puck a lot and play and skate.
And they didn't have a lot of money.
No.
And his mom helped out, I think, at the rink to work at the rink, so because he loved hockey, to get him the ice time. And he played in these 3-on-3s, and he was always told that he should be part of these
elite travel
these
teams.
elite travel teams and stuff, or he was going to fall behind because he
Yeah.
wasn't going to learn his position and
Yeah.
offsides and all this stuff, right?
Yeah.
But he kept playing the 3-on-3 and the small area stuff and getting those repetitions and
the skill sets he developed was critical, right? It wasn't the systems and the power play and all those stuffs that we're putting on younger kids nowadays. Younger and younger, it seems like it was the skill sets that were important. And then as he developed physically, then he went to the U.S. National Development Team, and obviously he's one of the top players in the National Hockey League. And it just shows you that the kids that do the right things at the right ages, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon, right? And there's all these light developers because of just take your time, buy your time, and doing the right thing, sticking to the process of player development. And nowadays, with all the research and the science and all the stuff people are putting out, USA Hockey's putting out, you really can develop the right way and guide people into the right direction and give them best chance to reach their genetic potential. And that like we talked about before, that may not be the National Hockey League, right? But that they're going to have that hockey for life and that passion and pass it on to the next person. And that's what it's really all about when we talk about the Declaration of Principles of the National Hockey League, right? If we can make an impact on a child for the life and give them the game and do it the right way, it's really impactful.
Absolutely. And okay, so we could talk for hours, but we're already about 30 minutes, which is usually what we want our time to do the show. Before we leave off, so we talked about two great drills and games we can do at the youth level, at the youngest levels, 8 and 10. We can use some of those at the older levels too.
Yep.
But let's give an example maybe of something that's used at some of the older age groups through a smaller game that, again, may look not like what we expect from a game in a practice situation.
So a great one is we use a lot is called the odd man rush game, and this can be used at all ages, and it really covers a lot. It almost covers everything in hockey.
Odd man rush game.
Odd man rush game. So you can do it cross ice, you can do it half ice, you can do it 3/4 ice. There's all different versions and looks you can give for different pattern recognition. Very simple. What it is, it's 2-on-2 in the middle, and then you have your player behind your own defensive net, another player behind the defensive net. So all you're trying to do with the 2-on-2 is try to get the puck, regroup with your player behind the net, and then attack 3-on-2. So it works on transition, it works on 3-on-2 rushes, it works on breakouts, right? Because you got to get the puck back, you got to support the puck, get it open to him, move it to him, and you're working on offense, filling the lanes, and it's covering offensive zone, defensive zone, forechecking, breakouts, all these things without really knowing it. And then the beauty of it is you can add other players in it. You can make it 4-on-2. Now you start talking about working on power play, shorthanded situations. So it's just one example, and maybe next time we'll have a board and we can draw it up so people can visualize it. It's easier for me to visualize things. But that's just one example of, okay, we could just play 5-on-5, which is not bad, right? But there's times when, especially at the older ages, they need to play 5-on-5 when there's some teaching being done there. Great at the older ages too if you can play 5-on-5 at both ends if you're working on defensive zone. But there's also room to get or replicate more and hit more skill sets, right? And to hit those activity and puck touches more is to do some of those smaller games with the odd man rush games and certain games like that can really hit on all those topics and quicker and really pack it into one drill.
Great example of one that, so for example, let's say you're doing that with PWAA, you coach a PWAA team, or we do it with, or if I do it with a high school team, someone might just look at that and say, oh, they're playing 3-on-3 cross ice. Must be the end of practice. We must just be having some fun and playing 3-on-3 cross ice. But what we're doing in that situation, like so 2-on-2, picture 2-on-2, a player behind the net, you get the puck, you have to regroup behind your net, so we're working on a breakout to space. We could add in there, hey, you have to do a D to D. Hey, you have to do a reverse. Hey, you have to do a wheel. So we could work on the actual specific breakout. We could force them to make a pass before the halfway point. We could force them to make a pass to the wall. We could do different things on the breakout. Then they're on a 3-on-2 rush. We can talk about attacking on offense. We can talk to them about someone driving the net, someone pulling out high, having a dot wide guy, driving wide, taking the D. We can, on that, we can take defending the 3-on-2, right? We can, all these things within that we can focus on one of those even at a given time. It could be different every single week. That we can be teaching and coaching all those things that maybe someone doesn't realize. We're working on the breakout. We're working on the forecheck. We're working on the offensive zone rush. So fun for us to get a chance to talk through this stuff. And we're going to work on better ways to communicate this so that those of you that are interested in the curriculum, that want to dive into it and really understand what's being said on the ice and what's being taught within those drills and smaller area games, so we understand how deep this goes and how much has gone into this and how much we want to get out of it for the kids and why we do it. Love to hear your suggestions, feedback, comments, questions. As always, please, like I said, whether you're watching live or via the replay, type in those comments and questions. Give us a thumbs up or a hi, how you doing, to let us know you're watching. Share the episode. We really appreciate it. And Paul, anything that I missed before we get into next week?
Well, next we'll be excited to talk a little bit more about this and get into some of the older age groups and stuff. And the neat thing with the curriculum and talking hockey and talking drills is it's always evolving, right?
Yeah.
The game has changed, and that's why the American Development Model was launched, and that's why we're continuing to innovate and look to improve what we're doing every day.
Absolutely. Great. Thank you, Paul. And thanks, everyone, for watching. We will see you next week.
Thanks, guys.
I got to get behind here and stop it now.